Hi, Stu. Welcome to Not Just Ads.
Hello.
And I am amazed as a Lego lover. I'm amazed by your background, including a Lego Trade Desk
Yeah,
logo.
yeah. In the middle of building that, the logo's not quite right yet, but
You're
yeah,
just
having fun.
you're just showing off to make me jealous.
That's not intended, but I love Lego. It's great for my brain. It's great for my creativity. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
I
a big
couldn't
fan.
agree more. We are absolutely on the same boat. And actually, talking about boat, I see the Titanic down there.
Yeah,
Half
that's
of the
down there. Yeah.
Titanic.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
it's not sunk yet.
And so the trade desk, you are senior director of European identity. How do you present yourself outside of the industry to everyday people? And how is instead your definition of identity and the trade desk's definition of identity within the industry?
Yeah, good question. I tend to not try and talk to people outside because that's never fun. Um, yeah, externally to people in the street, if I were to stop them, I work in advertising. I work in a part of advertising called programmatic. It's a bit like eBay for ads. And from an identity perspective, it's about you like your experiences to be relevant to you. In order for them to be relevant, we need to have an understanding of who you are. So I work in a space that allows us to kind of build that understanding of you. But I generally try not to talk to people external. Um, Internally, I think Trade Desk think about identity very much as kind of a foundation or a fabric of what we're trying to achieve. One of my favourite sayings is "No one ever bought a cookie," and what I mean by that is, cookie was a great tool or solution historically for kind of creating connectivity across an ecosystem. But we didn't buy the cookie; we bought the products and services and solutions that cookies kind of powered. And I think one of the challenges we face as an industry right now is that we probably productize identity a bit too much, and we need to remember the role that it plays. A bit like an analogy I always use, like the foundations of your house. And when you buy a house or you live in a house, you care about what it looks like, where it is, what your furniture looks like, etc. You also care the foundations are there and it's strong and holding your house up. But you don't go and dig a hole in the garden and stare at your foundations all day. Same with identity. You want it there, powering great connectivity and solutions, but we need to remember as an industry the role that it plays.
And there is a very, very strong focus on identity and interoperability in the industry. I think it's a bit of a dangerous distraction sometimes if it takes the whole stage. Because I always tell media owners, we had the third party cookie, we had the interoperability. We didn't even have GDPR, so not that
Yep.
stringent privacy regulations. Yet,
Yep.
look at what happened to your advertising revenues.
Yeah. The challenges that as an industry we face, whether that be as kind of news publishers or other types of publishers, on the changing kind of commercial value that we're generating, I think is way more than just identity. I don't think you can pin that on cookies or no cookies. Now, you've got generational changes in consumer behaviour. Um, You've got the rise and the fall of kind of walled gardens. I think publishers in particular are particularly reliant on the likes of Google and Facebook for driving people to them. And I think that's allowed them to become a little bit too dependent or able to be manipulated a bit or have those kind of approaches manipulated a bit, which kind of changes the code and that kind of stuff. So I think that's probably what's had more impact on those spaces. I think from a positive aspect, I think there is an opportunity now with this evolving space for publishers to take back more control and to be in more control is probably the better way of putting it, of what they do and how they do it.
Then, in terms of control, being more in control, identity is based on the relationship, is based on engagement, is based on the trust. Okay, I'll give you my email because you give me. There is an exchange of value.
Yeah.
How do you see that there are two different sides of the industry? Some are saying, well, that's a valuable asset. Publishers, media owners, advertisers shouldn't contribute to
Yep.
a third party's ID.
Yep. How do I feel about that? So, for context, I spent my entire career on the publisher side, either as a publisher or in predominantly publisher tech. So this is my first experience of kind of the other side of it. It's quite eye-opening, but I'm really enjoying it. But I get quite frustrated, I think, at people that go, let's take email as an example, people that go, I've collected all these emails and they're mine, I'm going to protect them. And I get quite frustrated at that because from my perspective, the emails are worthless. The emails are just how you know someone. And I give my email to everybody. I log into different sites, so everyone's got my email, and emails are everywhere. The value, I think, from a publisher perspective, is the knowledge that I can attach to that email, the things that I exclusively know about my users and the things that they do and the interests that they have. That's the thing that matters. That's the value. The email, if that's this particular mechanism we're talking about now, that's just my way of connecting to the ecosystem. So from a publisher perspective, I would want to say, I want to be as discoverable as possible. I want everybody to be able to find me. So I would want my email to be everywhere. I'd want everybody to know that they can connect to me through that mechanism. And then I can exclusively say, here's all the knowledge that I have and the value that I have. Let's engage and create value from that. So it kind of frustrates me a bit. And if you take that back to the kind of the cookie world, third-party cookies were really bad at data leakage. People could take that information and use it without kind of knowledge or without any kind of value going back to the publisher. And publishers were like, yeah, we'll just keep doing this. They don't care. Yet they seem to be a little bit more nervous about approaches that provide a little bit of that kind of security. And I remember some of my early days when I was at the FT, and agencies would say, hey, we buy your really valuable audience on kind of a frequency cap of 1, and we stick a tracking pixel on it, and then we build a pool of those users and go and buy them elsewhere for much, much cheaper. And that's not right. That's losing value.
The nonsense that has permeated the industry for too many years.
Absolutely. But I think publishers working with solutions, I represent the EUID trade desk solution, but that approach in general, they should want to engage in that approach because I think it opens up opportunity. They can still protect or control that access. Another great analogy perhaps is a bit like a shop. If you want to sell the stuff in your shop, your value, your knowledge, why would you lock your door? You want to open your door as wide as possible to let everybody see what's inside and have them come in. You might want to put a security guard on the door because perhaps your stuff's of high value and you want to protect it. But why are you locking the door and not engaging with solutions that allow you to open that door? To me, just doesn't make sense.
Who do you see as that security guard on the door?
Me. No, I think
we can work together on each side of the door.
Yeah, absolutely. If your name's not down, you're not coming in.
Bouncers,
Exactly.
the most threatening bouncers of the advertising industry.
Yeah, maybe not. I'm not sure anybody would believe this, but I think different approaches can play that kind of guardian or protector role. It can be the partners you work with and the approaches they have. It can be tech solutions that you use. It can be just policies and approaches. I don't think it necessarily has to be one single thing. I'd say someone like a trade desk, certainly my experience is that trade desk's kind of philosophy about wanting to create the kind of the open internet to be a great thing and really drive that forward, and our ethos is all in kind of creating that kind of value within that open ecosystem. I think Trade Desk can be a really good partner and protector in that space, and the ways that we work, I think, are aligned to that. Not everybody would agree or necessarily trust that. That's subjective. It's up to them, but I think we can play that role. Equally, other tech can exist in there, or it can just be how you approach the market and the ways that you kind of operate. I think that's relatively easy to solve, but open the doors.
There is another current, there is another point of view in the industry, which is that advertising should be ID-less.
Yeah.
Some say cookie-less, some say ID-less. I say it's first-party cookie web, which gives highlights more the role of media owners. But sorry, I don't want to digress.
Yeah. What do we think? Yeah. I really like some of the ID-less solutions that are out there. I think there's huge opportunity and value in that. I think where I get probably more annoyed than I should or more frustrated than I should is much like what I said about no one ever bought a cookie. We productize these things too much, and we're pushing solutions because of a commercial imperative or commercial focus. And we're trying to say, pick one example. Idealist is saying, Idealist is the only way that you can get scale, or Idealist ensures that you don't increase or decrease CPMs depending on who you're talking to. I don't believe that. I think Idealist plays a really important part, and I love some of the technologies, and they're great as part of the story. But for me, everything's part of the story. There's value in deterministic, there's value in broader identity solutions, there's value in contextual and geo and Idealist kind of cohort-based solutions. And actually the value is in how do I work with these holistically across my approach, whether it's as a publisher or as a brand. How do I bring them together to create the greatest opportunity and the greatest value? It shouldn't be one or the other, it should be both, and how do I use both in a way that works for me? That's how I think we should approach it.
And I think that a lot of these conflicts also happen because we have this distortion, I call it, of looking at the ecosystem as one entity.
Yeah.
And I don't think that in 2024 there is an ecosystem that can serve the needs of the multinational consumer brand and the one-man band DTC.
Yep.
The local publisher and the international media group.
Yeah, I think so. I think that will always be the case. There will be, whether it's different strategies around how you approach the connections that you want to create in the ecosystem, whether it be the types of properties or types of channels that you focus on, or the way you want to engage in terms of the type of messaging and etc. I think one of the joys of the industry is that's very varied, and you can be a local person with a small business and reach people that matter to you, and you could be a massive global multi-billion-dollar business and reach people that matter to you. I think that's something that should be celebrated. And in the open web, I think that opportunity is greater than anywhere else that exists. I think it's something that should be celebrated. I think there is some consistency in process and approach. I think having a robust foundation, as I said about earlier, that allows choices matters, whether that be a local choice to a local publisher or a global choice to a global publisher. I think having choices, having options, having connectivity is going to be important. So I think we can break it down into kind of component parts of where the value sits for me, but I think the similarities and the universe approaches to some of that I think makes sense.
The other side of the coin, of the identity coin, is authentication.
Yeah.
And authentication rate. How does the open web compete against the walled gardens?
Yeah. In terms of absolute authentication, it never will in certain aspects. So break that down a little bit. CTV, great authentication. Streaming audio, great authentication. Retail media, whether that be delivery of data or on-site media opportunities, often built off CRM, great authentication. We should celebrate those, we should lean into those and engage with them. In other areas, traditional news publishers and more of the kind of the open publishing space, they're never going to get the same levels of authentication. That's just not how we as consumers engage. I'm really heartened to see many of our partners at Trade Desk really leaning into how do they drive more authentication, improve or maximise the engagement they can get. I think that's really important. But I think for me it goes back to an ethos we have at Trade Desk about being open and connected and working across multiple solutions. You might get 10, 15, 20% authentication as a news publisher. You might only get 5%. That has value. Now that knowledge is valuable and should be used. It can drive decisioning, it can drive modelling, it can drive one-to-one connectivity to a smaller audience. Absolutely, that has value, and that value sits alongside the other things that you can bring: content and context, geo, some of the idealist solutions and the work they do there. It's stop thinking it's this or it's this or it's this. It's everything. So I think by bringing that together and working with solutions like EUID from Trade Desk and others to create that kind of connectivity, open the doors of your shop. To go back to that analogy, sat there worrying that I won't get 50, 60, 70% authentication, I don't think really matters. And to flip that on its head, yes, the walled gardens have really high levels of authentication, 100% in most cases. That's a really strong thing for them because it makes it easy to buy, it makes their supply chain easy. But beyond that, they don't have very much. They don't have much in terms of knowledge or value. Even some of the recent rulings out of Europe around Meta, there was one you won last week, seems to suggest that the amount of data that they can use is fairly tightly restricted. So yes, they have an easy button in terms of connectivity, but they don't have an easy button in terms of value and quality. The open web has all of that, value and quality, and has ways of making it easier to use identity and other solutions. So for me, change our mindsets, engage, and invest in these solutions, and we're in a really good place.
This is crucial because it reminds me of one of my pet obsessions, the funnel of trust. And it's not just about identity. It's about an approach, a relationship with the audience that touches every single layer of a media company, for example, including benefiting identity, but more than identity, the benefit of having an always logged in user, customer, but not because we are asking them to do and we are nice and good looking, but because there is a value exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. And authentication plays a really important part in the future of the open web. There's no getting away from that. And it's a very famous Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. If as a publisher you haven't thought about or invested in a strategy for growing your authentication, now's the time to do it, because it is going to play a really important part, and disproportionately its impact is greater than perhaps its size because of the connectivity it drives, but it's not everything.
What the Chinese saying doesn't say is that if you are being for years saying that you should plant trees now, and doing it for years is quite energy draining.
Yeah, but I get that, and I've run my own publisher, and I know the challenges that exist, but the right things remain the right things to do. Remain the right things to do.
I agree. I agree with you. I was just opening small brackets.
It's fine.
So you've been for a long time working for a media owner, for media owners. Yep. So you're a media owner at heart. Although I like the fact that there is this positive contamination across buy side and sell side.
Yeah.
What would you suggest media owners to do besides approaching you and contribute to the
well, there's always that, but this isn't a sales pitch for the trade desk.
Yes.
Come talk to me.
No, about regarding identity. Should I work with every identity provider? How should they? What is the optimal approach in your opinion?
So I can't answer that generally, because publisher by publisher is determined by your unique position and where you want to operate and the things that you want to do. So I can't say no, the optimal is 5 and here are the 5 you should work with. That's not my job, and that's not my responsibility. I would say publishers need to try and relax a bit and open those doors a bit wider. Understand that not everybody is there to steal everything from them and run away with all their goods, because ultimately, from a DSP, from this side of the fence, without great publishers, there isn't a huge amount we can do. So your existence and our existence coexist. That's often not necessarily valued as high as it should be.
This is fundamental. Fundamental because there cannot exist quality digital advertising without a quality media environment.
Absolutely, and vice versa. So be more trusting, I guess, is one way of putting it. I think don't pigeonhole yourself into having to pick one solution. There are lots of, whether there's different solutions within a framework like identity or lots of different approaches. Be open to understanding what's out there and what ones can bring value to you, and be willing to work with multiple solutions, whether it be ID-less or email or consent, not email, authenticated IDs or whatever it is. Be open to working with them all, but when you've opened your doors, think about the fact that your value is inside and you want to protect it. Work with the right kind of answers. Ask the difficult questions. Get comfortable with who they are as a partner and what they bring. And don't be frightened to ask those difficult questions, because if the companies that you're asking those questions of want to answer them, that's a good thing. If they try and hide away and say, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you that," that tells you, what you should know. So, be braver, be more open. There's a lovely phrase from Ted Lasso: "Be curious, not judgmental." That's probably what I would say as a key comment to publishers.
And I'm so curious that as a last question, I want to play a game, and I'm curious to know, what do you think a digital advertising industry would look like failing identity in an hypothetical world without identity? We will be hard coding banners.
Let's look at two perspectives. Yeah, I think if we went back to the old days, we'd all be stood by fax machines still, receiving IOs, on the last day of the month, hoping the paper doesn't run out. I don't think that's a reality for anybody. Where would we be without identity? Well, I was going to say the walled gardens would win, but you could then make an argument to say without identity, the walled gardens would struggle as well. So we would probably fall back into really old school ways of working. Lots of TV buying, lots of buying based off small panels and plans, and without much understanding or knowledge of why we're buying it and what value we get. And I don't think that's what we want as an industry. And I think from a consumer perspective, without identity, advertising wouldn't always make sense. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for the industry. So identity is a good thing.
It was just a hypothetical scenario. One positive thing from this hypothetical scenario would be that probably we would care more for the audience and the user experience, which doesn't mean that cannot happen also with identity and interoperability.
Yeah, I would personally say I do think people care. I think actually identity is about creating great experiences. I think we need to remember that at the heart of what we're doing when we talk about identity and the role it plays. But I don't think identity is the big bad wolf for publishers or for people. So
I wasn't blaming identity. I was saying that probably it would make us focus more on other things, because advertising has taken too much of the focus of the attention.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
Thank you very much, Stu. Good luck with your challenge, with your building European identity and
not Lego
sets.
I thought we were building Lego.
Absolutely. We will be back with you, and we want to see how your collection has evolved.
Brilliant. Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.